Los Angeles Athletic Club, March 1974. Billie Jean King stood in the center of the gymnasium, hands on her hips, looking at Chuck Norris with the same competitive fire that had carried her through 3-hour Grand Slam finals. 10 minutes, she said, loud enough for the 50 people in the room to hear. Non-stop. You think your karate conditioning can match tennis conditioning? Chuck Norris, quiet as always, just nodded. Nobody in that room knew they were about to witness something that would redefine what both champions understood about their own limits. This is that story. 1 year earlier, September 20th, 1973, Billie Jean King had walked into the Houston Astrodome and done something no female athlete had ever done. She'd beaten Bobby Riggs in the Battle of the Sexes tennis match, watched by 90 million people worldwide. It wasn't just tennis. It was a cultural earthquake. Riggs had spent months claiming women's tennis was inferior, that even a 55-year-old man could beat the best female player. Billie Jean destroyed him. 6-4, 6-3, 6-3. Straight sets. Dominant. Humiliating for Riggs. Empowering for women everywhere. By March 1974, Billie Jean King wasn't just a tennis player. She was a global icon, the most recognizable female athlete on the planet. She'd proven women could compete at the highest levels, could handle pressure, could win when it mattered most. But with that fame came constant challenges. Men, particularly male athletes, wanting to test her. Some respectful, some not. All underestimating what tennis conditioning actually meant. Chuck Norris, in 1974, was a different kind of famous. 6-time undefeated world karate champion, action star on the rise, had just filmed The Way of the Dragon with Bruce Lee. His reputation was built on precision, control, and an almost supernatural level of conditioning. But karate conditioning and tennis conditioning? Two completely different animals. The Los Angeles Athletic Club charity event was supposed to be lighthearted. Athletes out of their element, raise money, have fun, show some humility. The organizer, Jack Matthews, wanted something bigger. A headline. He wanted Billie Jean King versus Chuck Norris. Not tennis, not karate. Something neutral. A 10-minute non-stop fitness circuit. Burpees, sprints, jump rope, mountain climbers. No rest. Whoever maintained the highest intensity wins. When Jack approached Billie Jean, she laughed. You want me to do cardio against a martial artist? Jack, 3-hour matches in 100-degree heat? I've outlasted men who outweighed me by 80 pounds. So you're saying yes? I'm saying Chuck Norris has no idea what he's agreeing to. Chuck's response was simpler. He listened, then asked one question. Is this respectful, or another publicity stunt about men versus women? Jack was honest. Billie Jean wants to do it. She thinks tennis conditioning is superior. This isn't about gender. It's about two different training methodologies. Tell her I accept, but tell her this too. I have enormous respect for what she accomplished. This isn't about proving anything except what we can learn from each other. The media saw it differently. Battle of the Sexes. 2.0, screamed the headlines. The framing was exactly what both athletes didn't want, but the attention was massive. March 15th, 1974. The Los Angeles Athletic Club gymnasium was packed. 50 people capacity, but 75 had squeezed in. Athletes, reporters, celebrities. The energy was electric. Billie Jean arrived in tennis warm-ups, signature wireframe glasses, hair pulled back. She looked exactly like what she was, a professional athlete preparing for competition. Chuck arrived in a simple GI, no flash, no drama. He bowed respectfully to Billie Jean. She shook his hand firmly, looked him in the eye. You ready for this? I don't know, Chuck said honestly. I've never done anything like this. Good, Billie Jean said, competitive confidence showing. Neither have I. Let's find out what we're made of. The rules were simple. 10 minutes non-stop. 30 seconds of burpees, 30 seconds of shuttle sprints, 30 seconds of jump rope, 30 seconds of mountain climbers. Repeat. Judges scored on pace and form. Slowing down cost points. Sloppy form cost points. Stopping meant disqualification. Jack Matthews stood between them with a stopwatch. 3, 2, 1, go. They exploded into movement. Billie Jean's burpees were textbook. Down, chest to ground, explosive jump, hands overhead. Fluid, economical. Her tennis training was immediately evident. Chuck's burpees were powerful but different. More controlled, more deliberate. Martial arts discipline showing through. Shuttle sprints. Billie Jean was fast. Tennis footwork, explosive direction changes. Chuck kept pace, but the difference was visible. Her movements lighter, quicker. Jump rope. Billie Jean's rope hummed. Rapid, consistent, boxer-level speed. Chuck matched her rotation for rotation, rhythm slightly different. Mountain climbers. This is where cardiovascular conditioning showed. Billie Jean's breathing was deep but steady. Chuck's more measured, controlled. 1 minute gone, 9 to go. The pattern repeated. Burpees, sprints, jump rope, mountain climbers, over and over. The room watched in silence except for movement, feet hitting floor, ropes whipping air, heavy breathing. Minute 3. Both athletes still strong. Billie Jean's pace hadn't dropped at all. She'd settled into a groove. This was her world. Extended exertion, mental focus through fatigue. She'd played 5-set Grand Slam finals. This was just 10 minutes. Chuck was working harder. Not struggling, but working. His breathing had deepened. Karate matches were short, explosive, intense, but brief. This was sustained, unrelenting, different punishment. Minute 5. Halfway. Something shifted. People expected one of them to slow by now. Neither had. Billie Jean still flying through burpees, still explosive in sprints. Chuck still maintaining form, still keeping pace. But the difference was becoming visible. Billie Jean looked like she could do this for another hour. Chuck was digging deep. Jack Matthews whispered to his assistant, "I thought Chuck would dominate strength, and Billie Jean would outlast him. I was wrong. She's dominating everything." Minute 7. This is where it happened. Chuck Norris stopped trying to keep up with Billie Jean, not gave up. Stopped trying to match her pace. Something shifted in his body language. His movement slowed slightly, became even more controlled. His breathing changed, deeper, more rhythmic. His eyes half closed. He'd gone somewhere else mentally. Martial arts meditation state. Not fighting the fatigue, accepting it. Moving through it. One judge leaned toward another. "Is he slowing down?" The other shook his head. "Look at his form. It's perfect. He's not slowing. He's being more efficient." Minute 8. Billie Jean maintained her blistering pace. But something was happening to Chuck. His controlled breathing had stabilized his heart rate. His precise movements burned less energy than her explosive ones. He wasn't trying to match her anymore. He was doing something different. Her coach noticed. He's not competing with her anymore. He's competing with himself. Minute 9. 1 minute left. Both athletes were deep in suffering now. Billie Jean's legs burning, lungs screaming, but her mind clear. This was familiar territory. Every long match she'd played, every 5-set final. She knew this pain. She owned it. Chuck's suffering was different, his body screaming at him to stop. But his mind, trained through years of martial arts discipline, had created space between the pain and his consciousness. He felt it, acknowledged it, and kept moving. Final 30 seconds. Jack Matthews called it out. 30 seconds! Final mountain climbers! Both athletes dropped to the ground. Billie Jean's pace still high, still strong. Chuck's steady, controlled, perfect form through exhaustion. 15 seconds! The entire room was on their feet, shouting, cheering. This wasn't man versus woman anymore. This was two warriors refusing to quit. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop! Both athletes collapsed. Complete collapse. Billie Jean on her back, chest heaving. Chuck on his side, breathing deep, controlled even in exhaustion. For 30 seconds, nobody said anything. Then Billie Jean started laughing, exhausted, relieved, impressed laughter. "What the hell did you just do?" Chuck, still on his side, managed a small smile. "I have no idea. I've never gone that deep before." The judges conferred. Scoring was incredibly close. Finally, they announced it. Based on pace and intensity, Billie Jean King. Based on form and control, Chuck Norris. This is a draw. The room erupted. Both athletes slowly got to their feet, helped each other up. Billie Jean extended her hand. Chuck shook it, then pulled her into a respectful hug. "You're tougher than anyone I've ever trained with. That tennis conditioning is no joke. And you showed me something I've never seen. That mental control at the end, when you stopped fighting and just existed in the movement, that was remarkable." Jack Matthews approached with water bottles. Both athletes drank deeply. Then Billie Jean turned to the crowd. "I came here thinking I'd teach Chuck about endurance. Instead, he taught me about meditation, about finding peace inside suffering." Chuck addressed the crowd too. "I came here with enormous respect for Billie Jean King." That respect just multiplied. What she just did, maintaining that intensity for 10 full minutes, I couldn't do it. I had to change my approach just to survive. The media tried to create controversy, but both athletes shut it down immediately. In a joint interview the next day, a reporter asked Billie Jean, "Do you feel you proved tennis conditioning is superior?" Billie Jean looked annoyed. "That's not what this was about. Different sports require different conditioning. Chuck proved mental discipline can compensate for cardiovascular differences. I proved sport-specific training matters. We both learned something." Another reporter asked Chuck, "Were you surprised a woman could push you that hard?" Chuck's response was firm. "I wasn't competing against a woman. I was competing against one of the greatest athletes in the world. Gender is irrelevant. Billie Jean King's conditioning is the result of elite-level training. That's what pushed me. Not gender, excellence." Years later, in 1998, Billie Jean was interviewed for a sports documentary. "What do you remember most about that day?" "Minute 8, Billie Jean said without hesitation, "when Chuck changed his entire approach. When he stopped trying to match my pace and found his own way through. That taught me there's more than one way to be tough. Tennis taught me to fight through pain. Chuck showed me you can also find peace within pain. That's a different kind of strength." Chuck Norris, in a 2010 interview, was asked about the most challenging physical test he'd ever faced. "People expect me to say a karate championship or a movie stunt. But honestly, 10 minutes of circuit training with Billie Jean King. That woman has cardiovascular endurance that's almost superhuman. I had to go to a mental place I'd never accessed before just to finish." The legacy of that day in March 1974 wasn't about who won. It was about what both athletes discovered. Billie Jean learned that mental discipline could alter physical limitations. Chuck learned that sport-specific conditioning created advantages even superior mental control couldn't always overcome. But more than that, it was about respect. In an era where male and female athletes were constantly compared and pitted against each other, two champions showed a different way. Compete hard, push each other, but recognize excellence regardless of gender, sport, or methodology. There's a photograph from that day that still circulates. Chuck and Billie Jean, both collapsed on the gym floor, both exhausted, both smiling. Neither won, neither lost. Both were forever changed. That's what real competition looks like. Not domination, evolution.